So this is mostly about the Bolsheviks and the Ukraine, but there's a bunch of stuff before 1917 that I want to talk about. So it's just a bunch of historical dates. It's a timeline, years, dates, and then I do like an analysis at the end. So if you're not into that, then fast fucking forward. Putin's reign of terror continues. Ukrainians, the Revolutionary War, the Ukraine's Revolutionary War for independence carries on. Adolf Putin said that since Donbass used to be a part of Russia back in the 1910s and it ought to be part of Russia today. The Bolsheviks and the Ukraine from 1147 to December 1917. So, Russia and the Ukraine are the same age. 1991 is when both modern Ukraine and modern Russia was formed. In 1945, both Russia and the Ukraine joined the United Nations. The first time that Moscow or the Ukraine was used in the historical record, 1187 for the Ukraine and 1187 for Ukraine, 1147 for Moscow. So Ukraine, was mentioned 40 years later, but that's in the historical record, so that doesn't mean whether it was established or not. What it does mean is that both Moscow and the Ukraine are over 800 years of age. They're both over 800 years of age, and when you use 1945 or 1991, depending on which date you want to use for the modern Russia or Ukraine, they're the same age. They're the same fucking age, and we don't really know which one is older. We don't know which one is older. I bet you Kiev is older than Moscow. Kiev is, formed in the 500s? Fucking Moscow is mentioned, 1147. So, Kiev, the capital of modern Ukraine, is considered the cradle of Eastern Slavic civilization. The Varangians, the Swedish Vikings, the Rus conquered the Eastern Slavic people. So let me make this easy for everybody. If you're Eastern Slavic, right? If you're Gypsy, if you're Ina Shevchenko, if you're Pussy Riot, if you're Mila Kunis, then you're Ukrainian. If you're Eastern Slavic, you're Ukrainian. If you're Swedish Viking, you're Russian. So now everybody get to your respective corners. If you're a Swedish Viking, you're also Swedish. So if you're a Swedish Viking, you get to choose. Really, it's the Swedish get a right to take Russia over. Because back in the day, Russia was Swedish Vikings, the Varangians. So if you're Eastern Slavic, you're Ukrainian. If you're a Swedish Viking, you're Russian. That would make me more Russian than Ukrainian. I'm 50% fucking Swedish Viking on my mother's side. Swedish Viking. So, okay. Whatever. If I'm more Russian than Ukrainian, that's another reason why I know that Russia's got no fucking claim to the Ukraine. You're not Eastern Slavic. Hey, Russia. You're a Swedish Viking. You're not Eastern Slavic, you lying pieces of shit. 1648 uprising. The Ukraine has been declaring independence over and over and over and over again. 1648, Bogdan Khmelnytsky sought the independence of Ukraine. The war with Warsaw was long and devastating. Khmelnytsky was forced to ally himself with the Moscow state, with whom he signed the Treaty of Pereyaslav. 1654. At the time, he controlled only part of present-day Ukraine. The Cossack state, founded by Khmelnytsky, continues to enjoy broad autonomy from the Russian state. Bogdan, 1648. Bogdan, 1708, Battle of Poltava. The Swedish Empire is going to get crushed in central Ukraine at the Battle of Poltava. The city Poltava, Ukraine. This is July 8th, 1708. The Swedish Empire. Poltava is the Swedish Empire's Waterloo. So the Ukraine crushed the Swedish Empire. 1720, Peter the First, is that Peter the Grape? Peter the First, he banned all the Ukrainian printing of in the Ukrainian language. No more printing anything in the Ukrainian language. He also seized the church books that were written in Ukrainian. So he stole all the church books, banned printing in the Ukraine. This is 17. Nobody's printing. So basically, he just banned the written Ukrainian language. Don't you dare write that Ukrainian language. 1729, Peter II ordered that all Ukrainian official documents be rewritten in Russian. 1762 to 1796, the autonomy of Ukraine. Khmelnytsky, his autonomy wasn't definitively abolished until the end of the 18th century under the reign of Catherine II. Catherine the Grape. Catherine the Grape. So she's going to smash the autonomy of the Ukraine, but Bogdan, he tried. He tried from 1648 to what? Fucking 1796 or 62? Which one? 1763. Catherine II, I think, is the Grape. Banned teaching Ukrainian in the Kiev Mohyla Academy. So, whatever, the big academy in Kiev. Well, you're going to go to university in Kiev, huh? You're not going to learn no goddamn Ukrainian. But it's in Ukraine. I don't give a shit. I'm Catherine the Grape. Am I or am I not Catherine the Grape? 1775. The Russians are going to close the Ukrainian schools at the offices of the Cossack Regiment. 1789. The Polish Sejm Commission on Education ordered the closure of all Ukrainian schools. 1801 to 1918. To understand actually like 1,000 years of Russian history, all you need to know is the Rurik dynasty and the Romanov dynasty. Know the Rurik and the Romanov dynasty, you got 1,000 years. Now, to understand the 1800s until today, so if we were just to say, you know, everything before 1800 is fucking horse shit. So to understand 1800 Russian history, all you really need to know is 5 main Russian czars. That'll get you up to 1918. That'll get you up to the Bolsheviks and the Ukraine. So 1801 to 1918, the 5 main Russian czars are as thus follows. Number 1, Alexander the First, 1801 to 1825. He had a 24-year dynasty. Then you had Nicholas the First, 1825 to 1855, 30-year dynasty. Alex II, 1855 to 1881, 26-year dynasty. Then Alex III, 1881 to 1894, 13-year dynasty. Then Nicholas II, 1894 to 1917. He had a 23-year dynasty regime, realm, Reich, whatever. And then 1918, Alexis is going to die in 1918 and ends the Romanov. Good job, Alexis. Ends the Romanov bloodlines. Fucking Alexis. I knew we shouldn't have put the entire future of the Russian. So, that, Alexis aside, Alex 1, Nick 2, Alex 2, Alex 3, Nick 2. There's your goddamn 5 Russian czars. So, Alex 1, 2, and 3, Nicholas 1 and 2. Not in that order. Alex 1, Nicholas 1, Alex 2, Alex 3, Nicholas 2, and then the Bolsheviks. 1804 to 1917, from 1804 into the 1917 to 1921, the Ukrainian War for Independence lasts for 4 years. And they lost. They lost because they become the part of the Ukrainian socialist state, the USSR. They become a founding member of the USSR, but they're not their own nation. They're not their own independent nation. So from 1804, the entire time these 5 main Russian czars are in power from 1800s until 1917, the Ukrainian language was banned in the schools. So they're not printing the language, they're not speaking it, they're not allowing it. So basically, and then by making it illegal, then that like degrades it all throughout. Everybody's like, oh, you're speaking the Ukrainian, ooh. So they're doing a Russification, right, of the Ukraine. 1804, according to a special royal decree in the Russian Empire, all Ukrainian language schools were banned. which led to the degradation of the Ukrainian population. 1832, reorganization of education in Ukraine on the empire-wide principles and transforming old teaching into the Russian language. 1862, closing Ukrainian Sunday schools for adults in the Russian part of Ukraine. 1881, prohibition of teaching in the public schools and conducting church sermons in Ukrainian. 1884, the ban by Alexander III of Ukrainian theater in all provinces of Little Russia. 1888, a decree by Alexander III banned the use of the Ukrainian language in official institutions and of Ukrainian given names. 1892, prohibition to translate books from Russian into Ukrainian. June 23rd, 1917, the Ukrainian People's Republic was declared. The Central Rada issued its first universal declaring Ukrainian autonomy within a Russian federation. So this is after Nicholas II is going to quit after the February Revolution. And actually, a lot of the events happened in March. Ukraine is organized under the Central Rada in Kyiv. The Central Narada. So the Central Rada takes Kyiv, controls Ukraine. They had been asking the Tsar for, complete fucking... But since the Tsar's gone, then they're just like, this Mikhailo Hrushevsky is going to take the whole damn thing. So Ben Franklin, John Adams, George Washington, this Mikhailo Hrushevsky, he's up there. He's up there for the Ukrainian nation. You also got that Nestor. I like that Nestor guy too. But you also had that other dude that we mentioned earlier, right? The 1600 guy, the Bogdan, good old Bogdan Khmelnytsky. So he tried to do, some Ukrainian independence. Let's see here. Where are we at now? Catherine the Great, we mentioned the Polish, the ban, the Ukrainian language, and now we're at the timeline for the Bolsheviks. The first all-Ukrainian Peasant Congress is going to stamp their Declaration of Independence into law June 28th, 1917. So June 23rd, the Ukrainian People's Republic declared, and then they ratify it, 5 days later, right? On June 28th, 1917. So there you go. The Ukraine is independent. Hey, there you go, Candy Oinkins. Candy goddamn Doinkins. They tried to get independence in the 1600s. And here we have 1917, June 28th. They declared independence. They're going to fight a war of independence for 4 years, but they're going to fail. Eventually, 1945 is when you become a part of the United Nations. Isn't that when you become a country? If you're not part of the United Nations, you're not a country, right? Isn't that the whole... I thought that's the definition of a country. The timeline, Bolsheviks. There's a constituent election. The Bolsheviks invalidated it. Wait a second. The Bolsheviks, the great Bolsheviks are opposed to democracy. Oh, because they're thieves. They just want to take power from the poor, stupid Russian peasants. No. More to come.